Well, I'm back again to do another video here today. You can see the place I'm at today is out in the woods. It's actually a what I'm at here is a place that's kind of I think it's called kind of a primitive campground. I'm sitting at a table right now, and there's a behind me here. There's a fireplace, and there's 4 of these around here. That's people can come and pitch a tent in some of these places, but there's no electricity here, no running water other than the little stream that's behind me, but there's no clean water here. So this is just a place like camping out in the woods, other than you've got a fireplace of sorts, and I'll show it to you maybe here in a minute, and a table. And I said there's 4 of these here. So I forget exactly what this is called, but I think it's called a primitive type campground, because that's long before electricity. That's pretty much what you would have had if you come out camping somewhere. And it's, I think I may have said this, it's kind of dark out. It may rain. It has been raining some. It's damp out. You can tell where it's been raining here, because the table I'm on here feels still a little bit wet. It hasn't rained in the past few hours, but it has rained. And it may rain at some point today as well. I know it's in the forecast. Well, what I want to talk about, and something that's been in the news a lot recently because of just recent events, because of what's happened here in the United States in the past, I guess, 48 hours now since it's happened. And if you're watching anywhere in the world watching this, you know what happened out in Texas with the very sad situation out there in the school. I'm not sure what the number is now, but it was, last I saw, I think it was 19 kids were killed, and at least 2 adults. And the number may have gone up now. Some of the ones that were injured also may have died, so that's why the number may have gone up. So obviously it's a very sad event. There's an airplane flying over me. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but I'm gonna kind of wait till it goes over to continue talking. Yeah. Like I say, it's a very tragic, very sad thing, especially the fact this kid who did this was 18 years old. And that he killed his grandmother before he went and did this. I don't know, you don't know what possesses a person to want to do something like that. So you can only imagine what would make a person want to do those sort of things. One of the things I have to say, my own, before I get to talk about what I'm really wanting to talk about here, one of the things that I always kind of wonder about is the idea of the copycat. Because these things, we think they actually happen all the time. They're actually not all that frequent. But every time they happen, the news spends days and days talking about it. They'll cut into whatever programming they're doing, and then we'll spend several hours just covering this, where there's no real new information to be had, because all they can say is, well, we don't know any more at this time than what we're saying here, and then and on and on and on. And but the shooter gets far more publicity than he's certainly entitled to, whether he lives or dies. So it's all the idea of the copycat thought goes in with that. Is the person's done this, and he's seen other people does it, and this is one way to get attention, because if you do this, you're going to get attention. There's no doubt about it. So I kind of wonder sometimes if there's a copycat idea behind it. And maybe, I understand why the media wants to do it. It's an easy story to cover. The media, you should know, loves those type of stories that do not require a lot of thought. Everybody can understand it. It's a lot of human interest in it, and they can cover those very easily, and it does not take. It's the same way with what do you call it, the high-speed pursuits you see on the highways with the police, chasing people, the car that's trying to get away, and those sort of things. That's easy to cover too. So the media covers this every time it happens, and somebody wanting to get attention, obviously realizes, well, that's one way to do it. If I can do this, and so it's one of the things I do, wonder about. I'm not saying what the media should and shouldn't be allowed to do. I'm just saying I kind of wonder if that's part of the reason people, the ones that do it, indeed do this. Nevertheless, it happens, and people ask those a lot of questions like why, what possesses somebody to do this. But in the United States, inevitably, at least one of the things that you'll hear about is to say that the laws regarding guns in the United States are too loose. They're not very strict. It kind of depends on who you ask, how strict they are, and that sort of thing. But nonetheless, that's one of the things that gets mentioned, and I don't know why it is, but it's one of the things that I wonder about is why is it guns get blamed for something like this? Like anything else that happens, we blame the person who does it. Anybody, if I came up with a rock and hit somebody next to me over the head with it, nobody would blame the rock, they would blame me. Or if somebody came up behind me right now and conked me over the head with one, we blame the person who did it. It's the same with anything else. We blame the people who did it, except this one scenario. We tend not to blame the person. The focus is on what they use, the object they use to cause the harm, to cause the hurt that they did. Then we start focusing on that, and I don't totally understand it either. I have to admit I don't. I have somewhat of an understanding of it. I think there's an agenda, but I don't really want to go into that. But nevertheless, there's a lot. There seems to be a lot of the focus of it. It seems to be on the object, and not on the person who did it. So my own thought is when I start looking around and thinking, who do I want to listen to? I already know. The person that has the blood on their hands, if you will, for this, what happened, was this kid that did it, and he got shot. He got killed himself. So there's no one really left to blame because he's dead, but we still have to blame somebody, or we think we have to blame somebody. That's just, I guess, human nature. We want to put the blame on somebody, but the person to put the blame on is now dead. Unless there was somebody that conspired with him to do this, there's no one left to blame. If he was still alive, we'd put the blame, on him. So that's, kind of how I look at it. Is that's the one who's to blame for this, is the person who did this. There are millions of people who own the same type of gun that he used that have never shot anybody in self-defense or to murder somebody. Never killed anybody, never shot anybody with it. So clearly, if the gun was really causing the problem, we'd know about it. We would know about it here. That's not the problem, though. The problem was the evil that lies within the human heart that so devalues life that he's willing to kill a bunch of little kids and some adults, including one of his own relatives, and seemingly not thinking anything about it. One can't understand what would cause a person to do that, except just that the evil within the human heart. And I've mentioned this on another video I did. It's very easy for us to look in condemnatory ways, as we should. There's somebody who does that, but let us not overlook the evil that exists within our own hearts. To know that that's very much a part of the human nature is to have that. Is the evil the tendency to do this that exists within each of us. And we often want to deny it. We see the evil in others. We often don't see it in ourselves. So we have to be very, very clear in looking at that within ourselves. The prophet Jeremiah, we read something that the prophet Jeremiah said in Jeremiah chapter 17 and verse 9. He says this, says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" So it's kind of one of those things, and people say, well, just go with your heart and trust your heart. Well, no, that's not really good, because the heart is deceitful, as Jeremiah says, and wicked. We have to trust something greater than our hearts. In fact, it's in the book of Deuteronomy. I'm not going to turn to it, but the Lord, speaking through Moses just before Israel goes into the promised land, he warns them that you're going to get in there and you will follow your hearts to serve other gods. So our heart can tend to lead us toward bad things. So we can't trust that. We have to look to something that's far what is greater than our hearts. And we have to, one of the big things people, as I say, one of the big things people need to, I think, to learn, need to come to a realization of, is one of the big problems we have is a lot of people want to fight things in society, whatever the social ills may be. But one of the big lessons is to learn to fight yourself. Because the biggest problem you've got really is that what person you look at in the mirror. That becomes one of your biggest problems. And, you start blaming everything else. Well, we need to look, more inward. Rather than assuming we're good and these others are bad, we have to look, inward at ourselves too. Because we all have that capacity within us. The Apostle Paul even says, the evil that I don't want to do, I do, and the good that I want to do, I don't do it. So it's not a problem of not knowing what's good and evil. Paul says, I know what's good and evil. He says, I want to do good, but I end up not doing it. And I don't want to do evil, but I end up doing it. So we all have that within ourselves. But one other thing, too, just to go back to what I was talking about originally, was it's all throughout the Scripture that you have murderers in there in various places, as well as other evildoers that do other evils. The blame is always placed on them. There's never a blame placed on the object they use to do the evil. And as near as I can tell, throughout the Old Testament, there's never a prohibition on owning swords, knives, daggers, spears, javelins, other weapons of war, as we would call them today, and that's exactly what they were. They were weapons of war. There's several prohibitions, but there's never a prohibition on owning any of those things. There's plenty of prohibitions on how you use them, but not on owning them, because that wasn't considered to be the problem. And as a matter of fact, I was just reading the book of Esther. There's that story with Haman, who hated the Jews and wanted to wipe them all out. Esther finds out about it through Mordecai. There's a whole, it was actually well known. Haman had the king make the decree throughout the kingdom, the Persian Empire. So it was pretty well known. What wasn't known was that Esther was a Jew. But at any rate, when you get to near the end of the book, Esther pleads with the king for her people. And she doesn't ask that the people that want to kill the Jews be disarmed. She says basically let the Jews arm themselves. It doesn't actually say that, but it says let them defend themselves. Let them, and we're told they basically destroy their enemies with the sword. So we know that was part of it. They were armed. It doesn't call on disarming the enemies It calls on let our people themselves be armed and go defend themselves. In other words, let our people, the Jews, her people I should say, because the king was Persian, but let my people, you might say, Chester would say, let them arm themselves. So it was, you were basically trusting civilians, not even Persians, but non-Persians, because this is the Persian Empire, trusting these non-Persians with military-style weapons. So you have that in the book of Esther. So that's and it's throughout, and there as I can tell, the Bible, that what gets blamed for wrongdoing is the person doing it, not whatever they did it with, and that's more what we should be thinking of. Well, having said all that, I wanted to show you a little bit of what I mentioned I was going to show some of this other around here, this more primitive style of camping here. So let me grab my camera here from where I've got it sitting at, and we'll turn it around here so I can see this a little bit better. And right there's the fireplace, sort of to have a campfire at. You can see it's where people can cook at on there. Whoever was here last also kind of made one of their own with the rocks. As you can see, there's a stream running right behind it here. Right over there is another one. There's the fireplace. There's the table. There's the table I was just sitting on. There's my Bible sitting on the table. I'll grab it here in a minute. And I just felt the raindrop, so it's going to start raining here in a minute, so I'm going to head back to my truck, but I'll take you along for a little way here so that you can see this. There's the one I just pointed to you a minute ago. You walk across the bridge there. Oh, yeah, I can hear the rain coming down here, so you may get to go a little bit with me here in the rain. Here's another one, and then that's the number 2 right there, I think. Yeah, and they've built a little campfire area too. And then there's another one down here along the trail, which was the first one. I'm kind of going in reverse. I was sitting at campsite number 4 there, and so this is let's see, today I believe is May 26th, and May 26th, 2022. And so you may see this a day or two later, but so we're getting in that time of year where when it's not cloudy and raining, it's generally pretty hot out. But today it's actually fairly cool, at least by standards of what it has been. Get to walk right next to the creek here. And right here was campsite number 1. You may see like a bug. That's my hand there trying to knock the bug away. Rain will have that positive effect of keeping them sort of at bay. If you see this here, but there's a lot of ferns in this area too. Now right here we're going to have to make a big turn here. I could go on that way, but I'm actually going to turn back this way. And the rain is really starting to come down now. Don't really have anything to cover the camera with either, so kind of hoping that these leaves and all keep it safe, and hopefully the water doesn't just hit the outside of it. Coming across a bridge here, there's that same creek you saw. This goes on under this bridge. We'll go uphill here just for a bit. Even though it's raining, this is actually, as long as it's not lightning, this is actually I would prefer to be out hiking in this. Because one, the weather's cooler, Even though there are some gnats and mosquitoes flying around here, they're not quite as bad as they are when it's 90 degrees out. So it feels better when you're out doing this. May not be able to see real well on the lake, but I can see the water going down on it. You can kind of see a little bit there. You might be able to see it better on the video than I can even on this. But the raindrops falling on the lake. Now, if I wouldn't, like I said, my main concern here is this camera, hoping it doesn't get hurt. Just me out hiking in the rain never bothered me. Also, when it's cool out, of course, that keeps snakes generally out during that time. Which that wouldn't bother me to see one, but don't want to be surprised by a venomous one. Although the good thing is, when you're on a path like this, what I do in this case, if at all possible, is I'll walk in the middle of it. That way, there's enough distance between me and the side that anything that might want to strike out at me like that probably does not have enough room. So if at all possible, I stay right here in the middle. And on a path like this, you can see it's not as easy for a snake to disguise itself. Although I admit, seeing all these roots on here like this, I'm always thinking, is that a snake up there laying across the path? Generally, if it's a snake, it's going to be a little more curved than what the roots are, though. Though not always. They can go in a straight path at times. Now we'll come up on in the clearing here. Have to walk a little ways without any tree cover. Right here you can definitely see the rain coming down. See it hitting the water over here. I don't know if you can see, it's just a log over there. There are around here some ducks and geese. There's some birds flying right there, but there's some ducks and geese, but they're, oh, up there. Didn't really have time to get him as he was flying off. I'd have zoomed in on him a little bit more. Now we're near the road. And I'm about to go back into a little bit of cover here. A little tree cover. So that'll protect this from the rain a bit. And I'll go right back up here to where I'm parked at. here I am back where I started this off at. So if you've been with me this far, I appreciate it. Hope you enjoyed getting to see the hike. That's where I was at. It's called the Backcountry Sites. That's where those are. So anyway, here I am back in my truck. So hopefully everyone has a blessed day. And thanks for watching, and I'll see you the next time.